Good morning and welcome to the June 6th, 2018 Board of County Commissioners meeting. I'm Kate Flavin, Public Information Officer with Sedgwick County. I hope you've been enjoying Riverfest over these past couple of days. And today over the lunch hour, commissioners have been invited to take lunch out at the Kennedy Food Court at Riverfest. Tomorrow, Thursday evening at 6:15 p.m. at the Kennedy Stage, there will be a Sedgwick County Public Safety Tribute where we will recognize some exceptional public safety personnel for going above and beyond their service in our community. And also on Thursday evening at 5 p.m. on Waterman, there is a touch-a-truck and some of our public safety vehicles will be there as well. Riverfest will conclude this Saturday, so make sure that you go out and take in some of the fun that we have here in downtown Wichita. And commissioners, there are a number of items on our agenda this morning, several board appointments, a donation, a contract for our second Household Hazardous Waste event this summer, a review of bid board items, and then an update on the county administration building. And with that, Chairman, I will let you start the meeting.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate that very much. And I want to welcome everyone that's joining us here in the audience, those that are joining us on KPTS, and those that are joining us online. I want to reiterate that we do have Riverfest going on today, and a number of us are wearing our buttons that we've got on to commemorate that event. I want to remind the commissioners, I know we have a big agenda today, but we do have lunch over at the food court today, so I hope we can make that. And tomorrow evening we'll be honoring our first responders. So with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Herman Hicks, Greater Pentecostal, COGIC. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you for that. Please join me in flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Present.
Commissioner Anzaw?
Present.
Commissioner Howell?
Present.
Commissioner Unruh?
Present.
Chairman Dennis?
Present. Next item, please.
Public agenda.
Thank you. I have one person signed up on the public agenda, Mr. Alan Trenery. Please approach the podium. I can't speak this morning. Please approach the podium.
It must be that opportunity to take lunch at the Riverfest. It's got you excited, sir. Okay, my name is Alan Trenery. I live at 1461 North Burns Street. I returned to Wichita back in 2010 to take up the care of my mother. In Colorado, I was a CNA. I did a lot of in-home care with elderly and people that were, it was very traumatizing work because I watched a lot of people die. I would go and meet Uncle Bob or meet Aunt Sue or so on and so forth and take care of them, and their condition would get bad and then they would die. And then everybody else that was involved in the situation would suddenly be cut off from me and I would have to move on to the next person. It was kind of corrosive for my emotions as far as what was going on in my worldview. I participate with the North Riverside Neighborhood Association. They've approached me to become a active board member because members of the group are wanting to stop doing it as much, and I'm excited to do this. And as I've told you before, I do a lot of trash collection in my neighborhood, and I deliver this newsletter, so I'm exposed to a section of my neighborhood and talk to the people in the neighborhood. And I've been given indications by a lot of the people on the north side of my neighborhood that they're concerned about the swimming pool, the municipal for their children, because it's for the convenience for them to be able to have something for their children to do in the Spanish-speaking community up there. I kind of got a little rattled yesterday at the city council meeting because of I went to the district advisory board meeting, and an offhand statement by our community policing officer over the fireworks, the possibility of receiving fines for fireworks. And I know he was joking, but he made a glib offhand statement about, well, maybe we should confiscate their property over the fireworks fines. And I find this to be very disturbing. It would hold up the village voice. The police can take your stuff. And then you look at the other articles on here, and you've got Brewer for governor, and I feel very strongly and very sorry for Carl Brewer for what happened to his grandson. It really touches me and it scares me. And then we have the opioid epidemic. And I spoke before this body about my experiences in Colorado taking care of the veteran that had cancer with the medical marijuana, and that touches on the opioid crisis. My other article I have today is my uncle's book. My uncle's a graduate of North High School. My mother was a graduate of North High School, and my aunt went to North High School too. And this book is about the industrialism, the American experience, and I sat with him while he was writing this book with the man that was going to be my teacher in this class while they were discussing what they should do with the book and stuff. So it really forced a lot of issues into my consciousness about what it is to be so in society, a member of society, and governmental dynamics. And I used to come out here. My grandparents lived here my entire life. They lived over on 2424 Stopper Street in an original Stopper show home house where my aunt currently resides. And vivid memory I had as a young child was my grandmother reading me John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men and Grapes of Wrath and talking to me about John Steinbeck's and this. And I really am concerned with the us and them feeling that I get from a lot of my neighbors, a lot of people in our community, where I did a lot of canvassing during the Davis Stocking and Sam Brownback campaign, and I got a lot of people telling me, liberals, conservatives. I would really like for our community to become an us community instead of a them community again. It's very important to me that we should be able to get over our differences. I strive very hard to, when I speak, not to condemn anybody and to speak to the things that that concern me, because I want everybody to know that we're all people and that we all deserve each other's respect. And I gather that a lot through you, and I appreciate you and respect you for your service. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to take too much time because I want you to be able to get out for lunch today. So God bless you and have a good day. Thank you so much for your time.
We appreciate it. He's the only one that has signed up to speak today. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the open portion of the agenda today? And we will have some opportunities during one of the presentations later in the meeting if someone wants to speak. Seeing no one else, Madam Clerk, next item.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of May 9th, 2018.
Thank you. Commissioners, everyone has had a chance to review the minutes from both May 9th and May 16th. I make a motion that we approve both of those minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Next item, please.
Appointments. Item C, resolution reappointing members in the positions of Registered Water Well Driller and On-Site Wastewater Advisory Board member to the Sedgwick County Advisory Board for on-site water well construction.
Mr. Chairman, Eric Yost, County Councilor. Item C is a resolution reappointing Todd Harp and Christopher Brome to the Sedgwick County On-Site Wastewater Advisory Board. Both have already been serving, but these new terms would expire June 5 of 2022. Neither one of them is expected to be here today, and I would urge adoption of the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Yost. I know both these members, and I fully support their appointments. I move that we approve the appointments.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Next item, please.
Item D, resolution appointing Tim Holt to the Sedgwick County Advisory Board for on-site water well construction in the Wichita Area Association of Realtors position as recommended by the South Central Kansas Realtors Association.
Mr. Chairman, Eric Yost, County Councilor again. Item D is a resolution appointing Tim Holt to the Sedgwick County On-Site Water Well Construction Advisory Board in the Realtors position. This position is currently vacant, and Mr. Holt's term would expire June 5 of 2022. He also is not expected to be present today, and I would urge adoption of the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. I believe that everyone knows what's the individual. I move that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Next item, please.
New business. Item E, acceptance of a donation totaling $410 for the Suicide Prevention Coalition.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Talia Schwartz from ComCare. I'm here today on behalf of the Suicide Prevention Coalition because they continue to get donations for a 19-year-old female who took her own life back in January. We have received 6 additional donations in the amount of $410, and we are very saddened that this continues to happen in our community, but want to take this opportunity to reach out and explain that mental illness impacts 1 in 4 people in our community, and it shows no discrimination based on age or any other demographic. So we're here today to just ask that these donations are accepted and authorize the chairman to sign letters of appreciation.
Super. Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Seeing none, I think it's fantastic that people use this means to remember folks and contribute to something that's very worthwhile. I make a motion that we accept the donations and authorize me to sign the letters of appreciation.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Next item, please.
Item F, contract for household hazardous waste remote collection event on June 9th, 2018 with TEXTRON Aviation Beechcraft Division.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Erlenwine with Environmental Resources. Sedgwick County has a household hazardous waste facility located at 801 Stillwell. This is a place where residents can take their unwanted chemicals from home, whether those are cleaners, solvents, old paints, gasoline, oil from changing the oil in your car, pesticides, herbicides, quite a variety of material. And that facility is open Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5, and Saturdays, 9 to 3. But to better serve our community, we also offer 5 remote collection events every year. Our second remote collection event for 2018 is this Saturday at the TEXTRON Beechcraft Parking Lot E, and that is located at 10059 East Central. That's about a half-mile east of Reb Road on the south side of Central. It will run from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. this Saturday, so we encourage anyone in that area to bring their household hazardous waste for proper recycling and disposal. Beechcraft has signed the contract that's before you, and I would recommend the Commissioners sign the contract. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Susan. Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, Susan, I just want to once again thank you for your diligence in making sure that citizens have this opportunity in all the different commission districts. And this happens to be in my district, and I know that it's always been a very successful event. And so with that, I would make a motion, or I would move that we approve the contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Next item, please.
Item G, reconsideration of item 4 from the May 17th, 2018 meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Pardon me, Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. 2 weeks ago, This item was presented to you for approval, and at that time the recommendation was to accept the proposal from Journal Technologies Incorporated for a total 5-year cost of $1,254,000 and to establish contract pricing for any additional training that may be utilized. You asked at that time that we contact the vendor and request a 2-week extension, which we did, and they accepted that, and now this item is back before you for reconsideration.
Thank you, Joe. Commissioner Howell, you had questions on this last time?
No, I think I've got my questions answered. I would make a motion we would approve the recommendation of the Board of Bids and Contracts for item number G.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
Next item, please.
Item H, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting of May 31st, 2018.
For the record, Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts of May 31st results in 4 items that we present to you this morning. Item number 1 is road improvements for Public Works. This is a 2018 hot-in-place asphalt recycling. The recommendation is to accept the low bid from Bettis Asphalt and Construction Incorporated in the amount of $1,082,721.46. Item number 2 is the new current model 4-wheel drive half-ton crew cab trucks for the Sedgwick County Fire District number 1. This recommendation is to accept the low bid from Parks Motors in the amount of $74,332.80. Item number 3 is a new current model 4-wheel drive 3/4 ton crew cab truck, and this is for Sedgwick County Fire District number 1. The recommendation is to accept the low bid from Parks Motors in the amount of $45,035.40. Our final item for today is the Substance Abuse Program for ComCare. And this recommendation is to accept the proposal from Mental Health Association of South Central Kansas Incorporated in the amount of $77,500. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have and recommend approval of the 4 items.
Thanks, sir. Commissioner Howell?
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say a moment ago, I meant to say I appreciate the patience of staff and my colleagues. Give me some time to work out that last item, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well. I actually don't have any questions on this presentation today. I would like to make a motion. We would approve the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Before I call the next item, I'd like to talk a little bit about a change in scope for this discussion. I'll call the next item after we hear a discussion on the interim solution for our public safety needs. As a first step, I believe we need to proceed with directing the staff to begin planning immediately to move the sheriff's staff that remain in this building into the new jail addition office space. It's already been planned for the end of the process and will be done whatever our decision on a building is today. The interim solution provides enough space for the sheriff, but most importantly, it provides about 9,000 to 10,000 square feet for our district attorney in the quickest time possible. DA has said that he needs about 15,000 square feet eventually, so this gets him about 60 to 70% of his long-term space. I'd like to credit Commissioner Unruh for bringing this interim option forward. It addresses the most timely and critical public safety space needs, and it's already part of the process plan that the staff has brought before us. They had it at the end rather than at the beginning. Moving it to the beginning of the timeline gives us time to make smart decisions on our long-term needs. While it would provide the quickest, most fiscally responsible solution, it is an interim solution, and we will need to continue planning for the rest of the DA and the district courts. Commissioner Unruh?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your comments. I think that this particular strategy is something that we is not a duplication and not a waste of any of our resources. Whether we choose a building expansion, whether it's on an expansion of the courthouse or whether it's another building in the community, we still need to provide, as soon as possible, space for our district attorney and the appropriate space that the sheriff's been asking for quite some time to expand the adult detention facility for administrative purposes. And we have, quite a bit of open space over there that has been designated for this purpose. So it seems to me a logical thing to let's go ahead and get this project moving, since it's going to be something we'll have to do whether we stay here, move somewhere else, or don't do anything. And it will alleviate some of the pressure that's on the district attorney in his very crowded space. So with those comments, Mr. Chairman, I want to say I appreciate all the work that our staff's been doing up to this time, and they're going to have to continue to work hard at trying to solve this space needs problem. And we are trying throughout this process to be as deliberative as we can and to be thoughtful, open, and transparent. And so I think this is another step in that direction, that we can take this interim step and continue working and have discussion on the larger project. But with that in mind, Mr. Chairman, I would move that this commission direct the manager and staff to provide us with a plan to make the move whereby the sheriff's new space is created and he's moved into that new space, and space vacated in this building is remodeled for use by the district attorney. And I'd add that in the motion that we ask that to happen as soon as possible.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Commissioner Ransow.
Well, I guess I wish somebody would have told me we were going to talk about this today. This is clearly very well orchestrated, but I mean, I guess I need to have some more details of what you're talking about. I mean, I think I understand. I think I might know. I've known about. I don't know. I need more information before I vote on something. Maybe we should talk about this in staff meeting. Mr. Manager, why was I not informed this was going to come up?
Because I didn't know it was going to come up, Commissioner.
Oh. Perhaps the chairman and vice could instruct. I mean, I don't know that this is a bad idea, but it's not on the agenda. And I don't. Did all the other commissioners know this was going to come up? I would prefer that we table this and have some discussion, maybe in staff meeting, make sure we understand what we're doing here.
Thank you. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you. Well, in response to that, Commissioner, I would just say that this is just direction for the manager to bring us a plan for something that has been in general discussion up to this point. We're not making a decision on a contract. We're not spending any money, but we're just saying this is the first step in making this progress in solving our space needs. So I don't think anyone is putting any financial or long-term plans at risk by asking for this plan. But that's my comment.
It seems like to me there's already a commitment here, and I think this just needs to be a part of the overall discussion so that we can understand the whole thing together. But I'm just shocked that this is coming up without commissioners being informed about this. And I mean, give me something on paper, give me some of what we're talking about. Let's talk about it in staff, and then maybe we move forward. But I think it's premature to just kind of throw this out there all of a sudden without having a discussion about it. We spent all our time talking about this administration bill and the decision that we're likely to make today. I'm not sure why this all of a sudden, why the rush is, why this came up and no one knew about it. So I'm going to have to vote no on this because I don't have enough information exactly what your intent is and what we're trying to do here, because no one's giving me information. I'm not saying I'm necessarily opposed, but this is not a good way to do business in my estimation.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of clarifications. So this motion is simply asking staff to bring us more information on that as a first step, potentially. And so the timeline or the cost or how many square feet, when the shuffle might begin, those are all TBD, and we're not making a decision on any of that today.
That's correct.
You're just asking staff to bring us that as a front-end deal. So again, I guess I'm with Commissioner Rands on the fact I didn't know this was going to happen. I don't know any of the details, and so I'm not ready to support any details in terms of spending or plan. But in terms of asking staff to bring us this idea, I can support that. So I'll support the motion today. But I would agree that I did not know that this was going to be discussed today. Although I don't think there's any harm in asking staff to bring us a plan. So I'll support the motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Ranzo?
I'll just say that, Chairman, I think, asking staff to bring us information is stuff we do all the time in staff meeting, and that's the most appropriate avenue and way to do that, I would think. I would ask my colleagues to withdraw their motion, and let's just, it's, we didn't even take up an off-agenda item, okay? Let's do it the appropriate way, and use the right process and just do it at staff meeting, and then we can just direct them to do it. But
Thank you. Well, we have discussed this a number of times. If you look at the slide that's up on the board right now, it talks about renovating the second floor space for the DA that's currently occupied by the Sheriff's Office. So we have been discussing this. The only thing that we're interested in is that if we look at our needs, we've got a very critical, immediate need, and that's for the DA. And this is public safety that we're talking about. Trying to solve the immediate needs for the DA, the only way that we can do that makes sense, because we're going to do it eventually anyway, is to move the sheriff out into the renovated facility over there, and that's been talked about several times, and then get the area that the sheriff currently occupies ready for the DA. So this is not something new. We've talked about it. We've seen slides on it. All we're doing is saying that we'd like to see a plan to do this first.
Well,
Commissioner Ransom.
We've talked about it. We've had slides, but we haven't had a detailed discussion. This is just not the appropriate way to do this. I mean, you have sprung this on us, and you could say it's immediate. It's not really immediate. It may be an urgent need or something. It's going to take how long? Months, a year to get this done? I mean, you can wait till we talk about it in the staff meeting to understand how this all fits in, and we can kind of have a more thorough discussion. A bullet point here and there as part of a bigger overall plan does not mean we've had the appropriate level of discussion on this issue. But there again, this goes forward. I'm going to vote no, but it's not because I'm necessarily opposed to the project itself or exactly what the plan is, or what we're doing here. But we need more information before we make motions and take off agenda items, and it's just not the appropriate way to do this.
Thank you. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the motion just simply implies that we want to take a definite step towards this direction of making the first step in solving our space problems. I am expecting that the manager and his staff will bring forth not only more specific plans for this first move, but also financial impacts on how it has to do with our budget and our capital improvement plan. And so I think that since this is clearly phase one, step one, before we get into the detail on some of the other bigger expansion, this has got to be done anyway. And so I just think we should ask the manager to commence that.
Well, then let's do an on-agenda item, and let's write it up, and let's do it the right way. This thing you're talking about isn't new. I mean, but we need, you guys act like all of a sudden, boom, now it's urgent, and there's been no discussion about it. This is not how you do business, and the idea that it's a new idea, and now all of a sudden it's got to be done right away. Let's make sure we've thought through the whole process. We haven't even made a decision on the admin building, and it's all tied together.
Mr. Chairman, I would just advance the idea that whether we stay here, do nothing, build an expansion on the courthouse, move to a satellite location, this particular step needs to be made. And the sheriff has had this CIP on a watch list, I think, for quite some time. And so it's not a new idea. This is simply saying, in order to firm it up so that we have something to talk about, let's have the manager bring us some detailed plans. And so that's why I made the motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell?
Just, I have to say, I do somewhat agree with Commissioner Ranzo. I do think this could have been handled in the staff meeting, but, if this was going to be discussed, I would probably like to go over there and see the space, understand, I guess, a little bit more about what we're talking about before I spend a bunch of staff time, I guess, driving another presentation necessarily on a detail of the plan. I agree this is kind of this is one step in a multi-step plan. And I've said all along, I think that we ought to be willing to be inconvenienced to help solve this problem. I'm not even sure right now how much this solves the sheriff's space needs. I guess I'd like to know that as a matter of discussion. He's not even here today to discuss it, I don't think. So maybe a staff meeting where this is a planned discussion might be a more appropriate way to kick this initiative off. And so I guess I might agree with that. I don't think it makes a lot of difference whether it's done here or staff meeting in terms of in directing staff to do this. But I do think if we're going to have a directive to staff, we ought to have maybe a kind of some discussion with the sheriff, maybe go take a look at the space and that type of thing. So I guess maybe I'll change my vote and agree with Commissioner Ranzo at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner,
well, I don't agree that this isn't part of the agenda item. The agenda item is an update on the purchase of the county administration building. And we have to take a look at why that we're even doing this. Why do we have this on our agenda today? Well, the main reason we have it on our agenda today is because the DA needs more space. Anyone can go down there, and Mark Bennett would be happy to give you a tour to show you where he's working out of. If we're going to solve his problem, which is a critical need, instead of having it later on in this entire process of figuring out what we're going to do about an administrative building, all we're saying is that it needs to be done first. We need to have that space available for our DA. That is the critical need. The courts are a need, but that courts are 2 to 5 years from now before we have a need for that. But out of the entire reason that we're trying to do Step India on our agenda today is really starts with the DA. So if that's where it starts, this is where we need to start trying to solve the problem. And we're not spending any money doing this. This is a public safety issue. We're asking that we take a look at this. We've talked about it. We've had it on slides before. The sheriff has talked about it. It's not something new. All we're saying is rather than putting it at the end of the process, we're going to put it at the beginning of the process. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzo?
No.
Commissioner Howell?
No.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Thank you. All right. Mr. Manager, what do you got to say for us?
well, Commissioners, being a good manager, I only put this slide up here during that discussion just as a reminder that for the courthouse expansion project, if you had approved that, we had talked about in the past, as a good manager, I produced a quad chart with a planning horizon on some of the dominoes that would have to fall and some of the planning initiatives and votes, honestly, and staff meetings that would have to occur to support a phased approach to moving in any type of an expansion. It's going to be a phased process. It's going to be a couple of year process, but I only put it up there as a means for you to understand the dynamics behind what we would have to do. And so the very first phase in there is that that the correctional facility, the detention facility, remodel addition, what we call phase 1, 2 phases, and that very first phase is it contains that detention facility option. So if the courthouse expansion project is the one that is chosen, then we would have a staff meeting, we would have BOCC meetings, we would have multiple different steps in the process. There will be about 7 to 10 votes, depending on how we do things, to support any type of courthouse expansion, and I would even say a move to Riverview. There would be these successive type of meetings that we would have to do. So I only bring that up as a reminder that that we had talked about that in the past. So let me bring up why we're here again today. I will start out the briefing, and Tanya will get into the meat of the briefing as we have done in the past couple of meetings in reference to a new administration building. Our goals still remain the same. For me, obviously, I'd like to come out of here with a decision made on at least one of the options so the staff can move forward to help with our space management needs and start addressing the judicial and specifically the DA's needs in trying to get him some new space. We have on this particular briefing 3 decision points. As you remember, the last meeting a couple of weeks ago, we did narrow it down to these specific decision points on 150 North Main, the Riverview building, which is a remodel building about 3/4 of a mile down the road from here, and also a county courthouse expansion project, which is adding off to the north entrance to this building and filling out the campus of the county here. I'll go through really quickly this next slide and just kind of show you again the overall county courthouse space needs study. A lot of these you have seen multiple times in the past, so I won't belabor the point. And then the overarching county administration space summary. For us, it's at 73,000 total administration building tenant area. Different options here. If you build or choose the Riverview building, which is 3/4 a mile down the road, we may need to take more with us. If we stay here at the courthouse and expand here, then obviously we have the use of the full campus, and that would change the square footage just a little bit. And next, I'll pass it off. Before I go on, we do have, for today's briefing, we do have Joe Johnson and Justin Graham, our on-call architects, and also we have Steve Martins, our realtor, that have been assisting us in this process. So we do have some depth today that we didn't enjoy a couple of weeks ago when we had this discussion with the technical experts. And remember, Justin and Joe really helped us in the due diligence process and doing the analytics of Riverview so they can actually provide some more substantive comments based off of your questions. All right, Tanya.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Tanya Cole, Director of Project Services and Facilities Maintenance. At the last commission meeting, May 23rd, last discussion you had on the county administration building, the commissioners, you narrowed the buildings down to 3 options, and so I will be recapping those 3 building options. First one being then 150 North Main. This is an estimated turnkey build of $16 to $17.5 million. There would be 66,000 square feet finished and a separate 4,000 square foot building for county commission meeting space just to the north there. 57,000 square feet of that, including the basement, would then remain unfinished. Included in that is parking, and there were 3 options for parking at this location. That was to lease space to the north there in the current parking garage. There was a $1.2 million option to raise the Sunflower Bank building, which is just catty corner to that 150 North Main, as well as provide some surface parking to the south. There was also a $5.1 million option to build a parking garage there to the south, and you can see that in the rendering in this picture here. So. The next option then is the Riverview building at 345 Riverview. Just to recap the building offer and estimated price, the current asking price is $6.6 million with a 2-year master lease revenue cash upfront of $833,000. That is giving us revenue from that 2-year master lease. The master leaseholder would receive a $63,000 reduction in that master lease by giving us cash upfront. As well, they would provide assistance with the lease termination fee of $400,000. That is to for the anchor tenant that occupies 45% of space in that building. That lease runs through July 31 of 2024. This would remove them from the building December 31 of 2020, and they have presented a offer to us of $1.75 million to terminate that lease early, getting them out December 31 of 2020. So the owners would provide $400,000 to us off of that $1.75 million. So in essence, with those conditions, the Riverview owners have presented a cost to the county of $5.3 million. We would then pay the $1.75 million to terminate that lease early, for a total cost to the county of $7,117,000. You'll remember in previous briefings we talked extensively about the repair costs. That is estimated at $2.5 million for repairs to the building. Remodel costs are estimated between $25 and $45 a square foot. The $25 a square foot is the comparison to what we did at the Ronald Reagan building. At the Ronald Reagan building, the remodel costs there were $25 a square foot. So that is the low range, the high range then being $45 a square foot. So in total, remodel costs range from $2.2 million to $4.1 million. We also did a study of utility costs over 25 years at $1.25 a square foot. In total, that is $3.3 million for utility cost over 25 years. If we purchase the building, it is taken off the tax roll. The non-tax status to Sedgwick County over 25 years is $750,000. If we include all taxing entities in that, which includes city, school, state, and county, that's $3.1 million in taxes that become non-tax status. Total cost then, and let me explain this. This is different than what you've seen before, but we wanted to come back to you with total project costs. So these numbers that you see here include architectural and engineering fees, furniture, equipment, and contingency. So the low remodel on this building would then be in total $18,237,340. The high remodel cost then would be $20,409,027.
Of those two numbers, is that $3,178,600 included in those total costs?
It is not. The only number that is included is the $750,800 from the county.
But that is part of what it's going to cost us. That's
Correct.
part of what it's going to cost
Correct.
all of the different...
We would lose that tax revenue, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Ranzau?
Well, but I mean, our concern is the portion that's going to cost Sedgwick County. Now, does all that include the $1.6 million worth of rent that we would get?
It does not.
It does not. So we could reduce those numbers by $1.6 million. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Next.
The next option then being the county courthouse expansion. You've seen this rendering before. This is the site plan that shows, in the yellow then would be the site plan for the new admin building, which goes over the annex, which would be demoed in this scenario. Let me go back here. Departments in this area would be the clerk, county commission, county counselor, county manager, facilities, finance, HR, register of deeds, county treasurer, IT, and records management. Okay, to go over these costs, you will see that we now have a lower range on these square foot costs. That comes from the newest build that we've done in the county, and that is the Law Enforcement Training Center. That was a 60,000 square foot building. Total construction costs on that was $10 million. So $166 a square foot. So we've put that in the range there of possibilities on total costs. So you'll see the range there, 166 to 215 square foot at 70,375 square feet. That's the addition. You'll see then below is the basement at 8,000, and as well a small portion that will be built back up near the courthouse to connect those two, and that would be a two-story at 3,800 square feet. We've got the demo costs in there as well as the 25-year utility costs at $1 a square foot. We were also asked to provide information on what it would cost for an additional floor, leaving it at a shell finish, not a completely finished space. That's estimated at $125 a square foot. I've added the additional utilities at $1 a square foot. So in total, an additional floor with utility costs is $2.75 million. So again, just to reiterate, these are what the numbers that you see below are total project costs. So this includes architectural and engineering fees, furniture, equipment, and contingency. You'll see now the range of total cost $18.5 million to $22.7, and let me just explain that is for 4 floors, a total of 82,175 square feet. So the range there you see is if we use $166 a square foot versus $215 a square foot. Then below that is total cost with additional floors. So now we're talking about 5 floors, which is a total of 475 square feet in total. And so the range there that you see is $21.7 million to $25.9 million in total.
Thank you. Commissioner Ranzau.
Yes, sir. I need to go back to the 150 North Main.
Okay.
The turnkey price includes finished 66,000 square feet. The separate building and county commission room, is that finished and done as well?
That would be finished and done as well.
Okay, now the parking garage, new parking garage, raise the sunflower, those aren't included in any of those costs?
Correct.
And what was the new south parking garage cost?
Okay, there was the option to lease space from the existing north parking garage.
And there's a cost to that?
There's a cost to that. We don't have. Okay. I'll have to go back and look at his offer. I can't remember the cost that he was estimating on that to lease space there.
What about the south parking, new south parking garage?
Okay, so the new south parking garage, he provided an estimate of $5.1 million, and I believe it was for 286 parking stalls.
Do we know if that parking stalls would be adequate for us or what?
In total, we were looking at 300 parking stalls in total. That includes for public and employees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, at the last meeting, you asked for time to seek public input, and so the Communications Department worked with IT to put a banner on our county website. So if you were to go to the county website, you would see immediately the top portion here, which is that public engagement opportunity. It allowed you to go into this website and get background and information on the 2 primary buildings. There were some fact sheets on there as well that constituents could read and follow up and provide comments. Communications Department also put information out on our county website, and as well, I know, Commissioners, you put some information out on your newsletter, and you also have your avenues of social media that you put information out as well. So I won't read the comments, but I will just say this is reflective of some of the comments that the Communications Department did receive. Okay, I'll turn it over to Mike.
Commissioners, in addition to that, last week on May 30th, I brought together all the departments, all the electeds, and had a discussion about the tangibles and intangibles in reference to a courthouse expansion project or a Riverview project. Specifically, I had district attorney representative, district court, treasurer, register of deeds, county clerk, county counselor's office, county manager's office, of course, sheriff's office, finance, IT, courthouse, police, and facilities. We're all gathered to discuss the intangible and tangible advantages and disadvantages of moving county administration operations and functions from the county courthouse complex. For me, the interesting point was that there was a resounding apprehension on some common themes that as they were discussing it, I was taking notes, and then in the end circled these. There were some concerns about safety and security, convenience to citizens, collaboration, and basically function and efficiency. So just a little bit about safety and security. There was concerns not only at the campus of the location of it, the parking lot, but also really the lines of communications between here and there. So if we ended up getting the Riverview building, because our services would be split some distance, there would be a lot of foot traffic between the two buildings. And so we were somewhat, some of the departments and divisions were concerned about the ability to walk between the two buildings, and there may be some infrastructure improvements that we would have to make it just a little bit safer, and also to put some sidewalks into some places that currently aren't. The most important aspect of that was that if you look at the first bullet, it talks about cash and check payments made between the county treasurer's office and really all the functions, district attorney, district court, register of deeds, and the sheriff's office. The district court alone deposits were $15.6 million last year, as well as $835,000 in child support payments. So it's concerned large sums of money that we would either have to create a redundant system in this courthouse if we move down to the Riverview building to help in that exchange. So either redundant systems here or an armored car service or a combination of both. Also, there were currently over 2,000 child support customers annually. So that means exchanges and dealings between the judicial system and the treasurer's office. Additional exterior security measures may be necessary also at the Riverview building that we're not accounting for right now. Kind of the big two areas was convenience to the public. A lot of discussion about citizens right now that use the building and conduct multiple different tasks daily based off the services being co-located. That might be an inconvenience to some of these customers. There's a lot of movement, several touch points for the public in the building for courts, DA, that includes stops at the county treasurer's office. Kind of relates to the previous comment. Two, several members of the public coming to the county courthouse using public transportation, and currently the county courthouse is on the bus route. The Riverview closest bus stop is Central and Waco. Could be necessary to leave behind employees, as I said, to create that redundant system with the county clerk, treasurer, and deeds offices to provide that customer services at the county courthouse location. The deeds brought up, there are approximately 30 attorneys daily that file documents with the Register of Deeds and have requested Register of Deeds stay in the courthouse for convenience sake. So those are the attorneys that are doing multiple things in the building daily. There's a lot of talk about the collaboration between the departments and divisions. And when I say that, it's all about the interconnectivity between the offices and streamlined business systems. We talked about the print shop that supports all this, purchasing, needs goods, proximity between departments and divisions and vendors, the interactions between the DA, basically that informal interaction that happens between the DA, district court, county counselor's office is much easier in the same building, but also those interactions between the BOCC and other elected officials, divisions, and departments. Sheriff's office is part of the process involving various licenses that touch the county clerk and county counselor's office. And we're talking about 200 licenses per year. Also, the close proximity to the EOC, emergency management, in times of an emergency or disaster. A lot of talk about function and efficiency, the time trips. Many of the employees took it upon themselves to get up out of their desk, walk down the hall, down the elevator to Riverview, round trip and back. The distances between the two were calculated. 20 minutes between the county courthouse and the Riverview building. But when they were walking between Riverview and county courthouse, there were concerns with the conditions of the sidewalks, as well as no sidewalks in some places. And that kind of links back to the safety and security. Maps may need to be provided to the public and community in the mindset of just changing the location, because all these functions and services have been co-located for years, for generations, and just changing that might have some concerns. DA did have some concerns on being farther away from HR for convenience. records management, and clientele brought through security to be in secured meeting rooms in the county courthouse. And some of these, I won't go through each point, but additional facilities maintenance workers might be needed to support the Riverview building since it's an off-site courthouse complex. But I provided this to you. You could look at them in more detail. I didn't read them verbatim, but just kind of gave you some of the highlights. But it really, again, centered around safety, security, convenience to the public, collaboration between the departments, and function and efficiency. Those were the concerns by the collective body together.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Commissioner Ranza?
So are all those things you just talked about compelling reasons to go with an addition here instead of Riverview?
I think all those just need to be taken in perspective that we'd have to make accommodations between the two buildings. I think those are the intangible things that you don't really think about until you get down into the planning process and you start thinking about what it would mean to have an off-campus location as opposed to an on-campus location. I think they're just intangibles that bringing the team together and discussing them were some of the concerns that were brought up.
Well, I think we knew about these concerns all along. I guess if we get to the point that we say these things are a determinative factor in doing it and why we shouldn't go off-site, then why have we spent all of this time talking about off-site buildings for how long have we been doing this? We should have just never even gone down this road and just built here to begin with. So,
Commissioner,
that's something I'm concerned about. That we're kind of finding reasons to go one way as opposed to another when we knew all these things to begin with. I mean, if these are the deciding factor, then we've wasted a lot of time and money and other people's time and resources, even considering off-site locations. I surely hope that's. I mean, certainly wasn't my intent, and I think all of these personally. I think all of these things can be managed very easily.
Commissioner, I didn't. When I opened my statement, I didn't say it was to choose one or the other. Based off of the last meeting we had, if you remember. We were talking about tangibles and intangibles, and two of the electeds came up here and mentioned points that hadn't been brought up before. And it was the impetus behind me wanting to get all of them together and write these things down so that we can give better information to the commissioners so that they can make a reasoned decision based off those intangibles. We hadn't talked about those before. So.
Well, maybe we hadn't, but it's not like we didn't know about them or they weren't there. I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time, and what I'm saying is I know the discussion that's going on about these buildings behind the scenes and et cetera, and that these are being used as a reason to build here, and it's if they're that important, we knew about them a long time ago, and we should have went through the hassle and all the time and money resources to even look at off-site buildings. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other Commissioner Unruh?
Oh, thank you. Well, I just would make a comment that, it's a major decision, and it involves a lot of money, and it involves a lot of our partners that and fellow electeds that work in this building. So I think a process where we kind of stumble along, if you will, till we get to a clear vision of what we want to do is not a bad process. A lot of the objections that were brought up by our electeds at how they run their operation and some of the details, I wasn't aware of all those, and I think they have legitimate considerations for us. So I'm not upset with the process. I think a big process like this requires lots of discussions and starts and restarts until we get to the point we actually want to make a vote on a $20-some million project. So I appreciate the input of fellow electeds, and they educate me a little bit on how their process works. So that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of questions. First, I'd like to say thank you to the manager and Tanya for all the work you've done on this. I appreciate it very much. I have a couple of questions. Just back to kind of the manager's steps, the logistical steps on the shuffle. You meant in a previous agenda item where we put the sheriff over to the adult detention facility. How many square feet do we think that would be? That move?
It's about 5,400 square feet.
Okay, so the DA annex, which would be part of the courthouse addition, would have to be demolished. Where would the DA office at that point?
We would move the DA out of the annex into this building, and then we would, and to make that happen, the first phase, we would renovate the jail facility, which has been in the CIP forecast for years. It's just in this case, it would be a first phase to provide the necessary space for the DA to move into this building, which is the second floor space. We would move out the sheriff into the jail to make room for that, and then we would push off-site the deed and the clerk and also the finance to move the rest of the DA function into this courthouse. Based off of the DA needing to stay into this space.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you. I asked staff. I'm not sure they prepared this or not, but I did some of my own analysis, and I'll just present this. I guess unless you have different numbers, that's fine. But to me, we're not going to bond out the utility costs or long-term maintenance things that are routine in nature. Maybe some repairs required for the older Riverview building, perhaps, but some of that we would do if we were to go in that direction. We would probably do some of that right off the bat, but some of that might be delayed for a while. So I'm not sure about how much of the $2.54 million in repairs will be needed. I would tell you also the remodel low and remodel high. The remodel low is based on the Reagan building. If I understand, $25 a square foot. Reagan building, in my opinion, was much more difficult. We moved it towards what we call a paint and carpet plus. It was over about $1 million a floor. Initially, we moved it significantly to a more conservative remodel. I think it's a fine building in terms of where we ended up. But they didn't start out $25 a square foot. They ended up something else. We kind of pushed them in that direction. So you say 25 to 45. One of the advantages of the Riverview building, I thought when I did the walkthrough there, was I'm just going to anecdotally say about 60%, maybe 75% of that building was essentially move-in ready. It didn't require anything. Carpet was in good condition and things like that. So in terms of 25, to apply dollars per square foot to that entire building, to my opinion, is not the approach I would take. If I was going to buy a used home, for example, I might identify the areas I need to fix, and I would apply estimates towards those areas. But to apply a square foot factor to the entire building, in my opinion, is not the right approach there. But nevertheless, even with that in mind, if you add in the remodel low and the remodel high factors, then you add in the lease buyout. When you add in the bond costs for all of those things I just mentioned, so assume you do all the repairs, you do all the remodel, and you do the buyout. Okay, that's what's been presented. I'm using your numbers. And I was told yesterday by staff it was $470,000 per million for 20-year bonds. That's kind of a normal number that we would expect. Maybe it'd be above or below that, but that's the number we should use for just a ballpark in it. So I applied that number. I end up with, now I didn't add in utility costs. I didn't add in the tax aspect, but just those two numbers alone. The low was 17.5 and the high was 20.2. Those are the numbers. That comes out to $192 a square foot or $221 a square foot. Depends on whether it's a remodel low or remodel high number. And then if you do the same thing with the courthouse addition, the construction, and by the way, this includes $100,000 for the demo to prepare the site. The total price to construct that, if I see correctly, would be I have 13.4 or 16.9. Those are the construction numbers with the demo added in. Does that sound about right? Those are the numbers I came up with. 13.4, 16.9. I think I'm using your numbers. I add 100,000 to it. I'll say I'm right for now. If you add in the fifth floor, I have those numbers as well. It goes 15.7 to 19.2 for low and high. Depends on whatever construction costs you want to use. Add in the bond dollars for those items. Without the fifth floor, it's 19.7 or 24.9, and with the fifth floor, it's 20.0 to 28.3. Without the fifth floor, it's $304 a square foot for the high number and $240 a square foot for the low number. So what I'm getting to is, to me, those are the costs we got to be looking at when we make this decision. Utilities and long-term repair costs aren't really major factors. Even the tax issue is interesting. And the other things you brought up about the sidewalks and the maps and all that, those are interesting points, but those are not decision drivers to me. Those are things we can work through and solve, and we'll manage those things over time. But the price per square foot, considering the construction or the purchase, remodel, and repair, those are the things I'm looking at, plus bonds. I'll just say it's a significant difference. Again, and by the way, the fifth floor, surely we would finish that off. That's right now I'm showing $28.3 million, but at some point you're going to finish off that fifth floor, so it's just another $1 million in there. So we're touching $30 million for the courthouse addition with 5 floors. That's around a $30 million solution. With that, we would have about 100,000 square feet. Without the fifth floor, with 82.1 thousand square feet. Our problem statement said we needed 93.3 thousand square feet, so we really kind of have to do the fifth floor, in my opinion. The other thing is the Riverview building has a 24,000 square foot DA annex mixed into that. So with the Riverview, we would have 115,000 square feet in play, whereas if you go to the courthouse addition, at the most you'd have 100,000 square feet. So a 15,000 square feet difference. I guess my point is, between these two options, to me, the answer is very clear. And I'll also throw out there one more thing: is this is a 50 to 100 year decision. I'm going to be dead a long time before this is rethought through. I think that's reasonable. We're all going to be gone, so somebody else gets to manage the next problem statement that comes up. But the DA annex gives us very limited options. We could build on top of the courthouse now, but that's complicated, and we're not going to do that. So. Adding more to the the courthouse addition later on, in my opinion, will be just as complicated. So we're going to build 5 floors potentially. That's it. Once you outgrow that building, then what? If you purchase a commercial building, we have options. We can do all kinds of things at that point. You can sell it, and by the way, it'll appreciate in value over time. So 50 years from now, or whenever we decide we're out of that building, we have options. It's a beautiful building. My opinion, a lot of the numbers that have been given to us, in my opinion, are driving us towards a certain solution. But I guess I'd like to find a little bit more pragmatic numbers. Maybe these are good numbers. I know we tend to talk about worst case. We don't want to overrun our budgets and things like that. But I really feel like the Riverview building is a better option for lots of reasons. It's the size we need. It gives us more space to provide a more long-term solution. If we decide that we outgrow that building, we can sell it at some point in the future. It will appreciate in value. And our cost to get into the building is less dollars, absolutely less dollars. No matter how you divide this out, it's always less dollars. Every way I analyze this, I can't find a way where these are actually equivalent. But it comes down to, comes down to the timeline. And if I understand correctly, the courthouse addition is about a 24-month process to get us into that building, or get all the administration things moved into that building, about 24 months. If I understand correctly, we've got a letter from Riverview people, and I think Steve Martin's your part of this as well. Thank you for the information. But with those numbers I've given you already, we would have 84% occupancy of that Riverview building potentially. We'd have access to the building in 30 months. So time-wise, it's not a significant difference. Even if it was a year, to save that kind of money, I think it's worth a year of our time. So I'm trying to be analytical and trying to really think this through, but the price per square foot is significantly more for the courthouse addition. The timeline is not significantly different. The Riverview building is a longer-term solution. It provides much more space for us at a lower cost, no matter how you do the analysis. So for me, I only have the one I'm interested in right now is Riverview. That's my opinion. And Mr. Chairman, I may have other comments later if the conversation continues, but that's where I'm at the moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions from the commissioners at this time. Do you have anything else, Mr. Manager?
No, Commissioners. Just put up on the screen just the 3 decision points so you can vote as necessary.
Okay. Well, then at this time, I'd like to open this up to public comment to see if anyone in the audience would like to speak on this issue. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak? Yes, sir. Please approach the podium. Lonnie? And state your name for the record. I'm sorry, Mr. Wright.
Lonnie Wright, 1721 South Lulu in Wichita. I favor building next to the county courthouse. I'm not persuaded by your numbers, Mr. Howell, although they may be correct, but being a 20-minute walk away for so many people, I think we're trading a lot of inefficiency there to try to get a lower initial cost. I think we need to look at the operations for all the departments that are affected, not just, for the county commission, and take that into consideration. For me, the best buy for the taxpayers would be a new addition. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. And please approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Tony Utter, UTTER. I'm one of the owners of the Riverview building. I walked over here. I watched the first part of the meeting. I walked over here from my office across the street from the Riverview building in 4.5 minutes. Granted, I used a brisk pace, but I used sidewalks all the way. Had no trouble on that journey. So I just wanted to address that part of it because it shouldn't be 20 minutes unless you're on crutches. Couple other things. Commissioner Howell addressed something very important, I think, and that is with the Riverview building, if you decided to acquire that structure, remodeled it, and then outgrew it sometime down the road, you would have a marketable asset. The residual value there is millions of dollars saved for the taxpayers. If you build onto the courthouse, you don't have a marketable asset. You would have to sell everything to do that, and based on my 40 years experience in the business, I can't think of anybody who could use that much square footage in the future for office space. Other than that, I just wanted to make myself available for any questions that the commissioners might have.
Thank you. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Utter, Commissioner Ranzau mentioned that we would start receiving rents. I'm a little confused with the financial arrangement you have with your current tenants and the escrow account that's established, and it's counted towards reducing our cost of getting in. But then when do rents actually start? From whom do they come?
That would be the county's choice based on my conversation yesterday morning with Rich Kirshen, who's CEO of the law company and LK Architecture. You could either, let me back up a little bit. When we acquired the building, we did a master absolute net lease with the law company, which means we have income that was escrowed into the bank for the entire 5-year term. So all the rents are there, no risk involved. The law company, as the master lessee, has all of the building operating expenses, including taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, everything. They've also had assumed the costs of tenant improvements and leasing commissions, but those won't be a factor anymore. So what we had proposed in a letter that I addressed to everybody was that if we closed August 1st, thereabouts, there would be approximately $896,000 in rents still available under the master lease that's escrowed in a local bank. We would either assign the lease and our rights to receive those payments to the county, or if you wanted the money up front, I had this discussion with Rich yesterday too, he would be willing to pay a discounted rental amount of $833,000 immediately, and we would give it to the county at the closing. So the funds would be there. You can take your choice either way. We arrived at that number by using a 7% return on investment factor. The remaining tenants in the building who would stay there through December 31st, 2020, and there is one of them who would be there for 4 months longer than that, you would have an additional $257,000 in rent coming in and no expenses. So we're looking at almost $1.1, $1.2 million in additional financial benefits to the county. And then we would also be willing to either apply $400,000 to the county's price or for the acquisition of the building, or we would be willing to contribute $400,000 toward the lease buyout and relocation costs for the law company.
All right. Well, did you get a copy of this presentation that shows the cost of us for the Riverview building? I mean, I was just want to say, you agree with these numbers that we have here?
I have not seen that, so I couldn't comment directly on that, but I can tell you that I have a lot of experience about renovating existing buildings and constructing new buildings. I was in charge of the construction of the Realtors Association's headquarters at the Water Walk. I oversaw the conversion of the Farm Credit Bank building from a single-tenant building to a multi-tenant building, converting floors ranging in size from 15,000 to 60,000 square foot floor plates. And I do this for a living every day.
Okay, but the back to my original question, when would rents beyond the lease escrow and the assistance in the termination fee, when would we then get revenue in excess of that?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm not sure I do either. So,
well,
it's we show that we would get the benefit of the escrow master lease money.
Yes.
And $400,000 if we're closing
Yes.
out. And the question that was asked earlier by Commissioner Ranzau is that rents would start, or we would receive rents. When would that start? Is that
on the day of closing? So we closed August 1st.
Receiving rent in beyond the $833,000.
Yes. Hang on a second. Let me back up. I don't think that's correct.
You have the answer? Commissioner Ranzau has the answer.
Well, good. I'd like to hear it.
Well, this is the information given to me by staff yesterday. If we did it this year, we'd get $187,000 in rent. Next year, we get $448,000 in rent, and it goes $700,000 the next year. Then it would start going down to $156,000, $83,000, $55,000. So the total is $1.6 million
over
above and beyond all that other stuff.
Over what time frame?
Through 2023. The bulk of it would be through 2020.
Okay, but that's in addition to that $833,000.
I haven't seen that tabulation, but just based on my familiarity with everything connected with that building, essentially. In addition, since it's a master lease and the master lessee escrowed all of the rents for the entire 5-year term.
For everybody in the building?
For everybody in the building. They receive the rents currently from the other tenants and would continue to receive those rents until they vacated the building. So, for example, let's say we closed on August 1st on the sale of the Riverview building. We assign the master lease to the county. We also either let the county assign our rights to collect $896,000 through July 31st, 2020, or we would take the discounted early rent payment and give that to the county. So it's either under that scenario, it's either $896,000 or $833,000. Under that master lease, which doesn't expire until July 31st, 2020, if LK and LC were to remain in the building during that period of time under the master lease, they are entitled to receive, let me back that up. Right now, if this weren't an issue, if we weren't even talking about this, they would continue to receive the rents from the other tenants. I haven't studied this legal issue. If we assign the master lease to the county, who gets the rent to be paid by the other tenants?
Yeah, that's...
Well, I was informed by staff. That's where I got the information. If that's wrong, then I need to know, but that's what...
I don't know.
I mean, this was in response to my question of how much rent money would we get as we moved along, and they did two scenarios. One of them was under the assumption that maybe we wouldn't have to buy them out, and that'd be a different story.
Sure.
But this one included the one that we did. So maybe I don't have the right information, but this is what.
Under the master lease as it's currently written, the law company as the lessee and the master lessee receives all of the rents paid by the other tenants. We negotiated an amount with them for their rent payment for the entire building in consideration of them also assuming all building operating expense costs, taxes, insurance, everything. So the county would also be in that position. You'd have no expenses at least through July 31st of 2020, possibly through December 31st of 2020. Now the question of what happens to the rents to be paid by the other tenants, of which there are, was it 6?
Yeah. Tony, or Mr. Utter, that's part of my trying to get an understanding here is that we're supposed to get that $833,000, and it's implied we're going to get the rents, and we're going to have no expenses. And I'm having a hard time reconciling that. Now, Mr. Kirshen is absolutely a great businessman, and I mean, he's a friend of mine, a great K-Stater. So, hello, Rich, if you're watching. But I'm just trying to figure this out. So, so thanks. And Tanya, do you have clarification?
Commissioners, the way that I understand the leases, and Will Deere and I have both reviewed the leases, we would have the master lease that begins August 1 of 2018 through July 31st of 2020. We would either get the $896 in whole if we took monthly payments, or we would get the $833 in cash up front. The remaining August 1 of 2020 through December 31st of 2020, we would then receive those lease payments from all tenants in the building, which I think are 9 tenants, if I'm not mistaken.
And we would have landlord responsibilities beginning at that time?
We would have landlord responsibilities beginning August 1 of 2020.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. I'm pretty sure I have it now, so thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you. Just wanted to make a comment on the two speakers. I don't know if we have a good understanding exactly how many people go between the courts that go to the deeds or the treasurer. So I'm not sure I have a handle on that just yet. But back to Mr. Utter's point, I just did a Google Maps verification. According to Google Maps, if you go from this courthouse straight south to 3rd Street and then turn west, that route has sidewalks all the way. It's 0.5 miles. And according to Google, a leisurely 3-mile-per-hour walk, you get there in 10 minutes. And by the way, you have to walk past the Reagan building to get there. That's 7 minutes to the Reagan building and 10 minutes to the Riverview building if you took that route. According to Google, if you drive it, it's 3 minutes by car or 2 minutes to the Reagan building. So again, I think a lot of us walk to the Reagan building when we go over there. I know I do. So that has not been a problem. This is just slightly further. I'll just tell you, as a resident of Sedgwick County, I've lived here pretty much my entire life. I've never had to come to either one of these buildings, any of these buildings, and doing my normal business. Just never had a reason to come here. So I don't know how many people go between the court system or the DA and the sheriff to any of the other admin functions. That's the curiosity part of this. And if it's even mentioned in the front material that we possibly would have kiosks or other types of minor services here in this building to avoid people going from building to building. But if that was to happen, then nobody would have to go necessarily between the buildings. But like, for example, the DA and the sheriff, how many times they interface with the county counselor's office? I have no idea. But I don't think it's that many times per month. And even when the DA and the sheriff were here, I'm not sure exactly which one I asked now, but I asked either Judge Fleetwood or the sheriff or someone from the DA's office, whoever that was, how often do you interface with county counselor's office or other admin? And I think the answer was minimal. It wasn't like it happened all the time. So And he said it wasn't a major problem. I think that was what the sheriff said, if I remember correctly. He said it wasn't a major consideration. So, yeah, I mean, I do know they do interface once in a while. The question is how much. So, thank you for the chance to speak to those issues. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a statement? Anyone else? Okay, I'll bring it back to the bench. I've got something I'd like to read, and I'm going to read it because I want to make sure that I'm clear. And I've been debating on whether to say this, and I feel that I must, because we as an elected body must have all of our work conducted with the identified process and transparent process. I become very concerned about the new Riverview offer, because even though a letter from Mr. Utter was addressed to the county manager and sent by the building owner to all commissioners, it appears that an individual commissioner has been in private communications and negotiating about the Riverview building. And I say this because the manager was briefed on the details of that letter by a commissioner before the letter was ever sent to the commission. I've only been subpoenaed once in my entire life, and that was last fall when the FBI questioned us about the concern and perception of Commissioner O'Donnell working closely with building owners. This goes far beyond that. As I said, it goes way beyond the activity of bringing forth buildings for the staff to consider. This was an elected official communicating and negotiating directly with building owners. While I'm sure it will be portrayed as trying to get a good deal for the county, the proper channel and process is to direct our staff to do that negotiation so that there is no perception of insider dealing. We truly must work to regain the trust with the community. As I move through this, I'm asking every commissioner to please follow the process, go through our staff rather than to meet separately with anyone trying to sell us anything. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have several decisions that we need to make at this point. The first decision is whether or not we look at 150 North Main, or look at the Riverview building, or look at county courthouse expansion. I'd like to hear what our commission would like to do, first of all, with 150 North Main. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to be clear on that last statement, it was not me that was talking to the building owner. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, since my name got put in there, just wanted to be clear that you were not referring to me. I don't know if, with all this information, if I personally am ready to make a decision today on the Riverview or building onto the courthouse, or even buying 150 North Main. I would be in favor of postponing that at this point for a date not certain until I'm personally more comfortable. I don't know where the rest of the commission is sitting, but if that's a motion to make, I would make that at the appropriate time.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I agree. I think right now, with all of the latest information, we just got a letter on the 150 North Main, an email a day or two ago. We just got an extensive letter from Mr. Utter that I have alluded to. We've gotten new numbers just within the last day or so on the courthouse expansion, and now we're trying to make a decision today on something that's $20 to $30 million. I think that the right time to take a look at this is after we approve a budget, approve a CIP, and find out exactly what our financial situation is for the 2019. So I concur. I think this ought to be deferred until after we pass the budget. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that we defer this until after the budget is passed in July.
Thank you.
I can second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to clarify, we have a July 9th deadline for that one building. Is that correct? To make a decision, one or the other, either up or down. So this would effectively take Riverview off the table.
I think it's a June 9th deadline.
June
So,
9th.
Yeah. So Riverview, essentially, if you don't vote on it, would be taken out at June 9th.
Okay, so that's really what we're being asked to do is taking one option off the table potentially. Okay. Well, I think there's other reasons to delay. That wouldn't be the reason why, but I think it's not misunderstood. I think right now we have one option that makes sense to me, and that's the Riverview. I actually would be in favor of 150 North Main over building. I think any existing space. Someone said there was 1 million square feet of unused office space downtown, and to build new office space doesn't really make sense, especially when there's a significant difference in cost per square foot. So I guess I would be more inclined to me, the one building that's about the size we need and has a reasonable proposal that I think saves a lot of taxpayer dollars, in my opinion, is one. So if we're not going to vote on that today, then this takes it off the table. I think to delay this, we ought to maybe delay this until the next commission is seated, potentially. Because the Reagan building, if I remember correctly, was purchased right in the lame duck session. And I, as commissioner, had to deal with that decision. And we are now in the middle, we're in the middle of election season right now, and don't know who's going to be back here next year. But this is a decision that's going to be essentially administered by the next seated commission. So I think if we're going to delay this, we should delay it until January. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Ranza?
Well, I guess I have two questions. First of all, in general, I was going to support this motion, but I wanted staff to confirm this rent issue that I think I understand. I need to make sure I understand. But that is now, I need to clarify, if we do postpone this, does it truly, and we have a representative here from the Riverview building, does that take that off the table, or are they willing to, do you want to speak? Because if it takes it off the table, then this doesn't matter, and I don't need to clarify. But
on behalf of the ownership group, June 9th is not a relevant factor. We're willing to extend the deadline for the option. I had put in my letter to I think July 9th, and then I added, but we'll give you as much time as you want.
Okay. Well, then that means, as far as I'm concerned, I still need to make sure where's Tanya. But anyway, oh, there she is. I just need to make sure I understand what I think I understand, and
Sure.
Let's make sure we clarify with that or legal or whatever the details of that. Okay.
Good. We have a motion and a second to delay until after we pass the budget, and I understand Commissioner Howell's position. We may need to delay it again once at that point in time until after the general election at some point. We can make that decision at a future point. I think right now we need to just cool off a little bit. I ask everyone to please go through the proper process, and the proper process is through our manager and his staff. With that, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Thank you. Next item, please.
Consent agenda.
All right. Commissioners, Mike Scholes, County Manager, recommend you approve consent agenda items Juliet through Romeo.
Thank you. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move that we approve the consent agenda as presented, with the exception of item J or Juliet.
Thank you. We have a motion. I'll get Commissioner Ranzau. Would you like to speak first before we do a second?
Well, yeah, I did. I thought I had my light up there first.
I'm sorry.
No, I understand. Okay.
You want to second it then?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve Kilo through Romeo. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye. Commissioner Ranzo?
I move we approve consent agenda item J.
We have a motion to approve consent item Juliet. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Did I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
For discussion.
We have a motion and a second. I'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Unruh.
Mr. Chairman, my concern about this is that I believe this went through to the CIP committee, and they voted no on it. Is that my understanding correct, Mr. Manager? Did the CIP committee consider item J, and did they vote disapproval of that item?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Further discussion? Commissioner Ranzo.
Well, I've got this here. The rationale given was because the CIP committee doesn't support the idea of doing township roads, and they've recommended that we end the program for all township roads. The 1 mile every other year that all commissioners were getting. I don't really think that was relevant to this particular issue, but nevertheless, I don't think we want to, end the 1 mile for every commissioner every other mile. So, but that being said, this is just a need that I have in my district. We each have different needs in our districts at different times, and I think an issue with respect to the gravel road issue, the R342 got intertwined in an issue that didn't need to be, and quite frankly, I'd be surprised if we approved the bid board's recommendation to abolish. They also recommend abolishing that program. I mean, we're not going to support that, are we? I don't think so. So, anyway.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, we've got a motion to approve Juliet. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
No.
Commissioner Ranzo?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Chairman Dennis?
Aye.
What?
Madam Clerk, next item.
Legislative issues.
Legislative issues. Do we have anything on the agenda? Nothing on the agenda. Other. Any commissioners have anything for other? Commissioner Unruh.
We have received a notification that the city of Wichita, or we got some unofficial notification, they wanted to have us contribute $500,000 towards right-of-way purchases at the North Junction, which is in Commissioner Ranzo's district. Are we, I mean, is that become an official request, or where do we stand in that, I guess is my question.
I think it was official request, but I do have a meeting next week on Wednesday with the city manager because I didn't receive specifically anything on it. It came through Public Works, but he scheduled a meeting next Wednesday to talk about that very issue. So I'll have more information after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for other? I want to remind everyone that we are going to be done in time for lunch over at River Fest today. And don't forget, tomorrow night we have a salute to our first responders. And we want to make sure that we recognize how much that we appreciate everything that they do. We have no need for an executive session from what I understand. Does anything else need to come before the board today? Seeing nothing.